Let's start with kind of a simple one. How can I protect myself and my clients when I'm meeting on site, taking care of their flooded home? What should I be doing? You want to take that one?
Well, I'm not real sure where you're going with that.
Well,
one.
I'm thinking have hand sanitizer in your truck.
Oh.
Wash your hands
Well,
early and often and before you touch your steering wheel.
This is Category 3 black water. Any kind of rising water out of the yard is Category 3 black water. It has got every pathogen known to man. So when you go on that site, you need to be probably wearing an N95 respirator mask and gloves, and make sure you got on some kind of footwear that's not going to absorb water so that you don't get pathogens on you. If you get a cut or something like that, you need to take care of it immediately. But you got to protect yourself and your workers. That's primary thing you got to do. If you don't take care of yourself, your business, your family, and your workers, then you're not going to be able to do a whole lot of help out here in the general public. That's the first thing that you've got to learn.
Another thing you can do is make sure that you have your meetings with your client, your discussions outside. So if you need to go in and look at something, that's fine, but minimize the time that you spend inside the house and go out in the front yard and have those conversations just to be safe. We're in flooded houses a lot, every day, all of us are. So there can be a cumulative effect on your respiratory system from being exposed to that. So please be careful. So let's turn to some questions for the city. When do I need to pull out a permit to do tear out and demo of flooded houses? When?
For this event,
hold the mic a little closer to you.
For this event for tear out and demo, if it's not structural, there is no a permit will not be required. So, if your walls wouldn't push off the foundation or knock down or whatever, you can pull out the drywall, you can pull out the insulation, you can pull out almost anything. As long as it's not structural, no permitting will be required.
What if you're removing exterior doors as part of your demo work?
Great point. We have a brochure that I thought we would get to as we go on with this meeting, but for putback, for single-family dwellings, the only permitting that will be required will be for any structural adjustments, rafters, joists, whatever, windows and exterior doors, and the door between the garage and the home.
The attached garage and
the attached
and the
garage
house.
and the home. Anything else, any putback, so I didn't say anything about insulation, any putback, we will not require a permit. I'm sorry, from a building standpoint, from a structural permitting standpoint, if there are trade permits, such as if the water has risen above your outlets and those kind of things, all trade permits are still applicable: electrical, mechanical, plumbing. Okay. Sure, please.
Okay, we're tweaking this guideline a lot, but we have something that's online that you can look at. It's called permit guidelines. There are things will be changing here and there, but the things that do require a permit, we have a repair list for commercial and residential. We're waiving the insulation and the drywall unless it's a fire-rated assembly. On the doors, interior doors will not require a permit. Exterior doors, including the garage door between the house and the garage, that still needs to meet the requirements. Repair siding that exceeds 128 square feet will require a permit. Roof coverings, re-roofs that will require a
Hold the
permit.
mic a little closer, they're having trouble hearing you.
Okay.
Closer than that.
Repairing siding that exceeds 128 square feet will require a permit. Roof coverings and replacing exterior doors, like we said. So there are several things. If you refer to the one-stop guidelines, anything other than insulation for residential, insulation and drywall that's not part of a fire-rated assembly will require a permit. And it's on our website. For commercial, you will be required a permit for everything. Yeah, asbestos service is the only exemption when it comes to commercial permits.
What do you do about the moisture barrier?
Question is, what do you do about the moisture barrier?
You've got insulation
Well, we do require you to put it back to pre-flood conditions.
So no permits required. You'll be tasked with putting it back to pre-flood conditions. So that, you'll be tasked with putting it back to pre-flood condition. So there's a lot of trust, or is that the word, trust?
Hold the mic closer
placed
to
on
it.
you to do what you do, but we're trying to facilitate, like the speaker said, rebuilding Houston, and this is our way of facilitating that. So for single-family homes, we are allowing a tremendous amount of grace. Hopefully you as professionals will, adhere to that. So we're allowing the homeowners and their contractors to be able to put the home back to pre-flood conditions, if not for these things that breach the limit that would require permitting.
Let me complicate that a little further, and then we'll take a couple questions. One of the big questions that I've run into from my fellow remodelers is when you have soaking wet gypboard, 2-3 feet up, we are told that FEMA will not cover the removal of brick to access that gypboard. That's the only way you can reach it is from the outside. So what are we doing about that? So John says that he was told by a FEMA inspector that if you get an engineer to require it, that FEMA was going to...
inspector would have to request an engineer to come out.
The FEMA inspector has to request an engineer.
That sound right?
Can you want to comment on that? You know anything about that, David?
It came up a lot last year in Louisiana, for instance, where there was a lot of questions on whether that sort of stuff had to be replaced and whether it was paid under the flood insurance policy. I'm going to have to get back to Jamila with information on what they're doing for this disaster, because I just don't know.
Okay, so we'd like to have the opportunity to come back to you all with a response on that wet gypboard brick removal question with regard to insurance.
We had a couple of questions from the floor. Go ahead, sir.
What about houses that are currently in the floodplain?
What about houses that are currently in the floodplain? And conversely, how is permitting different if the house is not in the 100-year floodplain?
Okay, so if the house is in the floodplain, everything that Cheryl and Al just said, you can throw out the window, basically. If you've got anything more than floorings, which our rule is $10,000 worth of damage to a structure in the floodplain, then you do need a floodplain permit to do your flood damage repairs. So, when we think about that, we think of anyone who's got more than flooring to replace for most of our homes. Okay, so in terms of making your application for a floodplain permit, our whole goal is to ensure that you're doing a non-substantial improvement or non-substantial repair to that structure so we don't trigger some other provisions of our ordinance. So what we're looking at is what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how much the repair is going to cost and what a fair amount is for that versus a fair value for the structure by itself. Because this is the so-called 50% rule, where if it's going to cost 50% or more to repair the structure, we say that it's substantially damaged and must be brought into compliance before it can be repaired. So this is a big, serious issue that we have to work together and make sure we make the right decision on these properties. The good news is that many of our properties, while they've had what the homeowner considers to be substantial damage, are not in fact substantially damaged. Instead, they just have a lot of damage, and it'll cost, in fact, less than 50% of what the house is worth to get it put back together to pre-flood conditions. So we have existing permit procedures in place for doing this that we kind of use every day and we used in the previous flood events. That is that you bring in something we will accept for a cost estimate. We really love permitting people off of their insurance information. We like to permit people off of their FEMA proof of loss or final report. The advantage of that is it gives us a very detailed idea of what work needs to be done to get the house back in shape. It gives fair values or even more than fair values for the work. And it also gives us an actual cash value of the structure that exceeds what's in Harris County Appraisal District for that structure. The structure only, not the land. So that's one option that works really well, but some homeowners have no insurance or they're in a hurry and don't want to wait for insurance. So the alternative for them is to use a cost estimate that one of you all would prepare. And then that cost estimate has to be a detailed, itemized cost estimate that needs to be signed and notarized by the homeowner and you all, the contractors. We then compare that to either HCAD's improvement line on their HCAD appraisal, or they can use a private appraisal. The problem is we sometimes get crossways with that. We may think that I see you in the back there, sir. We may think that the value for the improvements is too low. You know, we have some contractors who say, yeah, this house, it got 5 feet of water in it, and I can put it back together for $16,000, no problem. And we say, we don't believe you. And so, you know, when we have situations like that where we don't think that the cost estimate seems right, that's where we have to dig deeper. Additionally, we run into some problems where people's Harris County Appraisal District improvement line is understated for their home. We see it frequently in areas where perhaps they've had some exemptions on the home, or they've done a great job at fighting their appraisal amounts every year. So we see that pretty routinely. So those folks run into some road bumps, but we have a new procedure we're going to be rolling out that's going to help with this and make it you know, less difficult to come up with the documents necessary to get your permit. This procedure isn't ready yet. We're testing it right now in the office, and we're training on it. What we're going to do is we're going to have you or the homeowner complete a questionnaire or a form that explains what the damage is to the house, just in plain terms. How high did the water get? What kind of flooring does this house have? When was it built? Was it ever rewired before? Questions like that a homeowner, or certainly you guys as professionals, would be able to answer. And then our office staff will use that information to perform a desktop FEMA-style substantial damage estimate. And that will give us some information back about an estimated repair cost that, you know, is consistent with what FEMA would use for this purpose, and also gives us an estimated cash value for the structure. So with that one step, we can avoid you having to bring a cost estimate to us, get it signed and notarized, and then deal with the appraisal issue. So that's going to be another alternative you'll have, and that should hopefully get us through permitting on properties that are not, you know, close to being substantially damaged. Some properties are not going to be eligible for that process. They're going to flunk the test when we run the estimates on them. We may need to take a closer look at them. Properties that have structural damage, that, you know, this desktop tool isn't designed for that, for being used in the office to look at things like that. That's something that we would need to lay eyes on or wait for better information to come up with. But this is going to clear out a lot of our properties that have 30% damage. We'll go on ahead and get those out of there, get those permitted, and get those back on the road to recovery. And then the ones that are closer, the ones that have more significant issues, that are kind of in that red zone of being close to being substantially damaged, those may require us to wait for insurance or to wait for our staff to get out and lay eyes on them and take care of them that way. So that's what we're dealing with. We're trying to improve that process, number one, and then number two, we're trying to get more of the process online to serve you guys. So those are some changes we're looking forward to rolling out in the next few weeks.
Can I ask you a couple of follow-up questions? Is it true that they're going to be stacking for the 50% rule, stacking prior repair projects for the 50% rule?
Yes and no. We will not be withholding permits for cumulative losses. So cumulative means that in 2015 you were 25% damaged, and now in 2017 you are 30% damaged. We're not going to deny your permit or declare you substantially damaged and withhold that permit for that. But what we will do is we will give you the the benefit of looking at a repetitive loss designation for you to see if that helps you with your ICC claim.
Is there a three strikes and you're out rule for?
There are some homes,
Insurance?
I was just looking at one last night that has 19 small losses on it, and they won't be denied either. They're small losses, but there's 19 of them. Yes.
Question?
I have two clients with houses directly across the street. Their tax value is $800,000 plus. However, they both fought their taxes for years. One house has a value of $286,000. The other one has a value of $95,000. I went.
Substantially damaged.
Well, they are substantial. So I went downtown to ask what to do about it, and they told me to submit multiple permits, repair permits. What do I do?
Can you
I
repeat
don't
that
think that's a
question?
good idea. I think the correct answer is there's two possible answers. Number one, try our new process. Hopefully you can wait a week or two to try our new process. The second option, wait for insurance. The third option, get a private appraisal. Another option would be talk to me, and we could see if we could look at some previous years' valuations on those structures. If you get my meaning. Look at whenever they made this fight, did they go from being 300,000 to 95,000? Okay.
Let's take some more questions from the floor, because we got a lot of questions coming up. Hold on, Larry.
The first question I had was way in the back with a black and white hat.
My family's been in construction for several decades, and
Can't hear you.
we've been through actually Hurricane Ivan all the way through now. So my question is, I've basically tried alleviating a lot of the issues that have happened in the past of things falling through the cracks. So I'm actually having all of our bids through a private adjuster no matter what. So I'm not actually going and handwriting and wasting time. I'm actually having the private adjuster. We're paying him directly to do all of our bids. My question is, what you brought up is like there's going to be a lot of contractors not doing a detailed bid and actually giving the homeowner what they want, which is what they want is to get back in their house as soon as possible. Sorry, I'm not joking. But either which way, so what is that? How can I, enlighten the homeowner to show them that that's a serious concern to not, rush that process and not actually have a detailed bid from that particular contractor? What would be the penalties, I guess, to bring up?
Well, the situation is that we ask for detailed itemized cost estimates if you're in the floodplain. So the cost estimate of the style that you would present would be really likely to get a permit immediately. These cost estimates that are less detailed would likely have some delays in permitting unless the new process we're talking about rolling out helps them. From the homeowner's perspective, they have to be aware that this is a pretty serious issue making this repair. And, I had many homeowners come to me in 2015 stating issues that they were having with insurance based on previous repairs they had done that were not done completely. I had one homeowner, something as simple as he got paid out for his big fancy stove completely in 2001. Now, fast forward 14 years, and insurance comes and takes a look and says, we paid you last time for this stove. No payment on the stove. And he's like, wow, I should have replaced the stove back then. I only saved about $800 because I had it serviced instead of replacing it. And now, a replacement stove of this nature is a lot more expensive. That's a pretty simple example, but overall the idea is that you want to make sure that you're getting all your proper repairs for your money. And if you're paying less than, significantly less than what insurance says it should be paid, that's reason for concern, and you have to make the right decision to make sure that you're getting the quality and the specific repairs that you're getting paid out for.
We can't hear you.
So you're talking about the 50% rule. Okay. So in terms of what's the penalty, if you end up not being declared substantially damaged in permitting, then you are proceeding with your repairs, and that may mean you're losing the opportunity to mitigate your home and get out of harm's way. Some people may make the decision to tear down and rebuild. Some people make the decision to elevate their home in place. And that's something that some of the homeowners on the southwest side of town wish they had availed themselves of. And I've seen many homeowners who've been in my office who were arguing with me and crying about the issue of substantial damage. And, you know, we try our best to work with the homeowners and make the right decision with them about substantial damage. And some of them were successfully able to appeal their substantial damage determination or find a way to get their improvements permitted. And then they flooded again in 2016. And at that point, they were ready. You know, they were ready to make a different decision. So it's very important that people evaluate this, because this is an opportunity for them to potentially get out of harm's way using the resources that they're getting potentially with their insurance claim. You had a question?
Anybody at One Stop use the maps to determine whether you're in the floodplain, or do we have to do a certificate elevation?
Okay.
Repeat the question, please.
The question was, do the folks in One Stop, does the Houston Permitting Center know who's in the floodplain? Or do we have to do an elevation certificate? Well, if you're about to do some repairs in the floodplain, you don't necessarily need an elevation certificate to get this permit. And we at the Houston Permitting Center do know who's in the floodplain and who's not. When you get your project number through the magic of computers, we know based on that address if you're located in the floodplain or not. And you should 95% of the time be directed to the floodplain office. Correct. And the rest of the time, Cheryl's awesome staff tries to double check to make sure that we know. The question of elevation certificate, should you get one or not? Well, if your home is compliant, that means the 50% rule does not apply to you, because worst case scenario, if you fall into the red zone on that 50% rule, the worst I can say to you is make your home compliant. Well, too late, you already are. And in this event, there are some people who have compliant structures that have unfortunately taken on water in this unprecedented rain event. So we may be seeing some of that. So it's possible that having an elevation certificate would benefit these homeowners. Many of them already have them if they can find them in their files or contact the surveyor who gave them their EC. And then you can contact the floodplain management office, and we can help you with that by taking a look at what we think is the case in that area. We'll know, looking at the city's topography, if you're likely to have a compliant structure or be close. There's some people I already know, you're 3 feet deep in the floodplain. You're non-compliant. You can get an EC if you want, but it won't get you out of this trouble.
Let's do one more question for Jamila, and then we're going to give her a well-deserved break. We've got some otve topics to cover.
Yeah, I've had this gentleman way in the back for a long time.
Larry?
Hi, I'm Larry Boykin, Master Electrician. I have a question regarding to the putback, as we were talking about, and keeping things under the 50% rebuild margin. As you know, everything that is flooded, they're going to be pulling their devices out, the electrical devices, their plugs, their switches, their appliances, at least to dry. They're going to be opening up their light fixtures, their panels. And under the current 2017 code, it states that if you remove that plug, then you have to arc fault that entire circuit now. And I know that NAHB is not here to direct us personally, but I mean, it does need to be going into consideration for the whole park, the whole picture. Are we going to waive that for putback?
I knew we'd get somebody new. Talked with NA, and it's an ongoing discussion right now about that. Residential-wise, what we stated is pre-flood conditions. Now, 2 feet up, you're not touching electrical, of course, no permit. Once you go above and you're replacing that, yes, you will need to, but not the arc fault that you're talking about. Commercial-wise, that's still under discussion. It's pretty much the high-up folks that's going to make that decision right. But as soon as we know that, I can get back with you on that. For residential, as long as it's pre-flood conditions, you're going to be good. That's correct, which requires the permit, but as of now for residential, it's pre-flood conditions, meaning that no, you don't. But for commercial, that's what's in discussion right now. I'm listening to you.
You don't have to arc fault it.
Now, keep in mind, though, now, if NA comes back and says, okay, yeah, the state's going to require us to do it, but we will let you know. Is that going to be, that's different from the 21st one?
When's the next luncheon? Staff? November?
November. Yeah, if need be.
Yeah, we may have to continue this because there's obviously so much to talk
Right,
about. So we'd
but-
like to have you back.
But if you give me information, like I said, when I get back to the office, I'll get with NA. Correct. And that's one of the things that's being discussed.
I have a question for you. How much does that decision cost on, say, a 2,000 square foot one-story?
It could be as much as, I mean, easily 10 grand or more if you get into, let's say, a condition where the neutrals are shared. I don't want to get into too much on the nerd theory of things, but the arc fault breakers are extremely picky, and if we're actually working on a project now where we had to go through and sort out a mess. And so it could be in a whole new panel because the size of the panel doesn't fit. It could be adding new panels. So at easy, 10 to 20K.
Right, and that's the reason why it's still in discussion right now, because we know how much it's going to cost.
All right, I'm going to switch over to a legal topic so we can hear from Mr. Faria. I am not doing the muck out, dry out on the home I'm working on, but I'm going to do the build back. Is there a waiver of liability form we can have our homeowners sign that says that I'm not responsible if mold returns because I had nothing to do with the mold remediation process?
First and foremost, I hope everyone noticed that no one wanted to sit next to me because I'm a lawyer. Did y'all notice that? Not a single person wanted to be next to me. I get it. I'm used to it by now.
2 lawyers in a row.
I know, right?
Thing.
The short answer is, of course, everyone's using the tab form remodeling contracts, right? Oh, I hate when I see the shaking of the heads. No, the issue is that there is no, in the current suite, there is no magic language per se. Many of you, or really some of you who are in this room right now, have contacted me repeatedly. You know I love it. And ultimately, what I'm going to encourage everyone to do is to use the special provisions addendum. Okay? It's a big blank form. And then you're going to go, but Ian, I don't know what to write here. I'm aware of that. I'm well aware of that. You're going to email me and say, Ian, can you send me the language? And then I'm going to respond to you with a couple sentences that you're going to highlight, cut, paste, and put on the special provisions. And you're going to make that part of it. And in essence, what we're doing is we're saying, we only have a contract for the rebuild. If you have had anyone come in and do air testing, mold testing, any type of remediation with respect to the growth of any type of organics in your house, that's on them, not me. And I would strongly recommend that you have that, because unless you're a certified mold remediator, and I don't know if anyone in here is, I don't want you, and I would not encourage you to be doing that work. I just wouldn't. It's not something that many of us are really educated on, and the ultimate liability on it is strong, because guess what most insurance policies don't cover? Mold. Okay? So if you get in there and you somehow make yourself liable and you turn around and you go, well, my insurance company will cover me, no, they won't. Okay? If I have yet to find anyone who actually has mold coverage since about 2003, because no one wants to pay for it. So drop me a line, call me, we'll get that, but this is the special provisions addendum. I forget the number off the top of my head, but it is available in the contract suite.
Another legal question. I know a contractor who was completing a whole house renovation. He was a day or two from completing the punch list on the job, and the house had been completely renovated. Every cabinet was new, every piece of flooring, every molding, every door, and so on, all new. House floods. He had just sent his final draw request for $5,000 or $6,000, and the homeowner said, I'm not paying that because all those cabinets and flooring and all those things are gone. They flooded, so why would I want to pay you for the remainder on the job? Which makes some sense in the homeowner's mind. So we need to have a good response if that comes up in your circumstances. What should they do? What should they say?
Well, first and foremost, obviously we should be empathetic to their situation, but here's me being the meanie. I don't care, okay? You guys provided a service. You agreed and are contractually bound to do the work and order the materials. They're contractually obligated to pay you for the work that you did. If it's a de minimis amount, if it's something small and you want to forgive it, congratulations. I'm never going to tell you not to do it. And in these times, hopefully it can be. But the problem that we as an industry have faced for years is that final punch list walk where they want to hold back all the money that they think that they can control you. And unfortunately, with this type of situation, they feel like they have even more control. The reality is that contractually you're entitled to it. And you should go after it, and you should get it if that's something that you want to pursue. Maybe you're willing to work with them. Maybe you're willing to, if they want you to do the remodeling for their home now that they've had flood damage, maybe that's something that you can come to an accommodation on. But at the end of the day, if you want a purely legal analysis, you've provided the service, it was installed, you have upheld your contractual obligations. Now they need to uphold theirs.
And you can file a lien and pursue your normal remedies if you need to.
And if you're using the tab form contracts, they've already contractually agreed to a lien. But more importantly, what you would be concerned about, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but what you'd be concerned about if it was cabinetry, for instance, your cabinet maker may then want to go and lien the project to get paid. And that creates a whole can of worms for us as builders and remodelers, because under the contract you're obligated to take care of that lien and have it removed. So obviously there are defenses if they don't pay, but lien, you yourself will have a lien. What you're going to be worried about are the derivative lien claimants, such as your subcontractors, suppliers, and material men.
One last question for our attorney, since he's up and dancing around the room a little bit when answering questions. We have a materials escalation clause already in the tab contract. But some of us are wondering, because we're hearing rumors that materials and labor may go up 40 to 60% by the end of this first year, just because of the sheer supply and demand variation that there is there. How can we protect ourselves on the labor side? How do we contractually deal with that and the materials escalation as well?
Well, there's a couple different ways to approach this issue. First and foremost, I brought with me the remodeling contract. Both it's of course fixed price, because if y'all are using cost plus, we have to have a very long discussion about that. But fixed price, and I have the short form and the long form. Now I know y'all are going to get this right. What do we as your legal counsel always tell you to use? Which one?
Long one.
Long form. Now I'm going to give you one quick example of why. We cut out 4 or 5 pages to give you the short form, and guess what the short form does not have in it? Escalation. But your long form does. And I have a lot of things I would like to say about escalation, because on a quick side note, I'm going to answer the question about labor and materials just quickly, but for those of you that had ongoing projects that flooded or ongoing projects that you're working on right now, you should be contacting your homeowners about the provisions of your contract for such things as escalation and change orders of necessity, because you may have structural integrity issues now. You may have other issues that change not only the schedule of your project, but the pricing of your project, and more importantly, the delivery of your project. Yes, none of your projects have a guaranteed completion date, but you've now been through something that you legitimately can no longer say, hey, it might be 3 months. It might be 6. Might be 9. I don't know what it's going to be. But to protect yourselves, you should be sending out written notices consistent with your contract so that you are protecting yourself as much as possible. Now, in the long form, we do have under Section 16Q the escalation. Now, it's in a bunch of the other contracts that apply, and the escalation in a nutshell says if materials change by 25% or more from the prior month, we are entitled to get that difference. It is silent as to labor, because labor traditionally is not going to be going up, because we don't anticipate these types of storms. That being said, my solution and what I would recommend is that, number one, you're going to have a sit down with your owners and explain to them what's going on with their project. And then number two, you have to do something that everyone here hates doing, which is more paperwork. I would strongly recommend that, number one, you try and get a voluntary change order. Sit down with them, explain to them what's going on, I'm a big proponent of being very direct with them and letting them know, here's what we have, here's how it's changed, and this is why. If they will not voluntarily agree with you, you do have one other contractual opportunity, and that is through a change order of necessity. Your contract specifically says that if a situation like this arises and you have to change what occurs, because let's be clear, you get 3, 4, 5 feet of water in someone's house, you're going to have all kinds of issues that you would not normally have under a standard remodeling contract. Therefore, Section 9B of this contract gives you the opportunity under about 4 or 5 situations that you are automatically given a change order, and we call it of necessity. Again, this is something that you need to be proactive with, document, and again, I strongly encourage y'all to sit down with your homeowners and have a very frank discussion about where you are and what's going on, because managing expectations at this level is going to be even more critical than normal. Because we're not really, I've had some builders tell me they haven't seen a change in prices whatsoever. Look, we just saw another hurricane go through Florida. We've got apparently a third one going to go hit like South Carolina or something. I don't know how those other jurisdictions are going to impact Texas, but there's going to be an impact. And it may not be within the next 10 days or 20 days or 30 days, but it's going to happen. So it's better to be prepared and be in front of this rather than having to submit a bunch of documents that they've never heard of for the first time.
By the way, at the Custom Builder Council meeting that's coming up next, I heard that
September
BMC is going to have their
21st.
commodity expert come and talk about what's going on with the availability of materials, what's going on with the Canadian soft lumber issues that we're having. Soft lumber went up 30% in the first quarter of 2017. So we've already had a materials escalation before any storms came. But we're going to have an expert come to that, and we're doing a similar panel there to talk about that. Geep, you got a comment?
Back to the liability issue. You're going to go in and repair a home that's already been, quote, demoed and dried out. Obviously, you need to have this waiver signed, but don't be blinded. Go in, make sure everything's prepared and done correctly as best of your knowledge before you cover it up. Number one, make sure it's dry, okay? I don't care who's told you it's dry. Get a moisture meter. They're pretty cheap at Lowe's and check it. And if you're not checking right, don't close it up. Inform your homeowner, let them take care of it, or you take care of it, whatever. You still have a liability and a duty if you are knowledgeable and you get there and you start that work and you see a problem that's going to affect what you're about to do. Always the contract, I teach contracts at home too. You got to have a contract. Make sure your subs have you as a named insured on their liability contracts when you do this. It's really, really important because you can get sued. It doesn't matter. He'll tell you. They don't have to have a reason to sue you. They're going to start from the top down and going to sue you. And so you're going to have to defend yourself, and hopefully you've got a liability company that will defend you. And it won't cost you so much money, but it still takes a lot of time.
Geep, can you talk about the average number of days or weeks a home should be open and drying before we do that testing pre-cover-up, and what the numbers should be reading on the moisture meters and where on the walls? Do we get those numbers?
The number of days the home's going to have to be opened up and the number of days it's going to take to dry are going to be based on a lot of things. Number one, the amount of water that actually the material was exposed to and how long it was exposed to it. The other thing is what the outdoor conditions are as you're trying to dry, because now we've torn out this structure on the inside. We're opened up. We got air filtration coming in 90 miles an hour. If the humidity is greater outside than inside, the vapor pressure moves that humidity to the inside. So now as you're drying, you're not only drying your wet structure, you're drying out the incoming humidity. Now, if you got a low humidity day, let's say it's 32% outside and what you test inside with your hygrometer is 48, 50%, open the windows. Unless you've got enough equipment in there to drop that humidity. The equipment that I use puts out 12 to 15% relative humidity air. And we put enough air movers in there to evaporate the water and get it dry. There's never going to be a condition where I'm going to open up my house. But if you've got what I call brownie units, you're getting down to 30% humidity, it might actually be to your favor to open up the house and let it dry out. The size of the house, hidden areas that you really can't get into without tearing something completely evasive, that's going to have a lot to do with you drying out. Somebody mentioned the sheetrock sheathing a while ago, the gypboard sheathing. Okay, there is a way to make it go to dry, but you're not going to be able to decontaminate it. The only thing you can decontaminate is the surface. But you can get what looks like a medieval tool. It's a roller. It has spikes on it, or what they call a paper tiger. You can run that up and down the sheetrock and put these holes in it, and that will allow the water to escape. The other thing you can do is actually at the joint, cut the joint out. You can come back and fire tape it later. But if you cut the joint out and expose the gypsum, get the tape off of it, it will dry a lot faster.
How much do you cut out, like a half inch or an inch or what?
Quarter inch. If you cut just enough to expose that edge and get the paper off of it, then it will dry out a lot faster. Same way with running the paper tiger or the spikes on the inside. That'll help dry it out. But it takes what it takes, guys, to get it dry. When we dried, I didn't have any problems getting my studs to 10%. And most of the time, the sheathing, we stayed in there and dried 5 to 7 days because we needed the sheathing to get dry. Because most of our homes had either old Celotex type sheathing or plywood or wafer board, one or the other. So it takes a little longer to make that go. The stud will dry to about 10%. Plates, if you get a plate down on the floor dry to 15%, you've done an absolute marvelous job. The problem is concrete is much more porous than what you think, and it absorbs in a tremendous amount of water, especially in the homes that the water stayed in there more than 48 hours. And it's slow to soak it up. It's the same way to give it up. It's slow giving it up. You'll dry the studding and all out way before all that dries out. So that's why the plate doesn't want to get dry, because it's soaking up moisture from the floor. But it takes what it takes. I went to school with a guy, learned from him, Chuck DeWalt, up in Tennessee. He's the guru of this science. And Chuck mentions that everything will go to dry. Wet will go to dry, but you got to give it a reason, and you got to give it enough reason to go to dry. But it's critically important you make sure this stuff's closed up before you close it up to make sure it's dry and that it's been decontaminated. It needs some kind of antimicrobial agent in there. My suggestion is when you come into a home and you're about to demo it, put a knockdown on it. Go in there and spray it before you ever do anything. That knocks down the bacteria and everything you're going to be working with or possibly inhaling. When you get it torn out, do it again. But then as you dry it down to where we're dry enough that that material that's left will absorb enough antimicrobial agent to take care of the bacteria, that's when you got to do it again. So we do it about 3 times. What we use is Microban. I can buy a bottle of Microban for $40. It'll make up about 40 gallons. And it takes about 40 gallons for me to do a 2,000 square foot structure 3 times. But I want to be safe rather than sorry. It's too cheap. Doesn't take long to put it out. The gallon that for $40 is a concentrate. You mix it up. It takes like 6 ounces to the gallon, I think, to mix it up on the stronger side. We mix it stronger than weaker.
Gee, people are using other solutions as well for the mildew side. One of them made by Concrobium. I think they sell it at Home Depot. It's called mold control. Have you ever heard of that? Do you know if that's any good? Or the borax vinegar mixture that a lot of people seem to be using?
There are all kinds of products out here. They're antimicrobials, guys. Another one a friend of mine likes to use is a product called Benefact. Benefact is a whole lot.
How do you spell it?
Called Benefact. I'm not sure how you spell it. But he swears by this product. He likes it better than what I use as Microban because he thinks it's environmentally safer. So that's always a consideration. But the biggest thing here is the fact if you don't dry it, the mold will grow. Your structure will eventually dry up, but the mold will stay there. It will go dormant because you take away the food source or you take away the water, but it's going to be there. Mold spores, they have known this for generations, will live hundreds and thousands of years. All you have to do to enact it is get it wet.
Kevin, you got a question?
And we have mold outside our homes and inside our homes. So the chances, if you do a mold test on one of these homes, it's going to be positive and off the scale, but make sure you test outside as well to see what you're dealing with, because the likelihood that you're going to get your mold count a whole lot less inside right now than outside is slim and none. Now you can use the HEPA scrubbers. As far as I know, what I was told when we were doing ours, and I'm going to put a HEPA scrubber on anything that I dry out because I want to take the particulates out of the air. We were told at the time, the FEMA guy can tell me whether I'm right or not, they wouldn't cover a HEPA scrubber. They would cover the dehues and the air movers, but no HEPA scrubbers. I own HEPA scrubbers. I put them on the job to protect my client and my guys that work for me.
Okay, Kevin, got a question?
Okay, so the question's for Geep and Ian. Since we're talking about prescribing solutions to drying and mold issues, how does that open up my liability as a non-certified mold person or someone who's certified to dry out homes? Should I stay away from it altogether and just stick with regular remodel work once they're cleared and they have a certification from an outside party?
Yes.
Yes. Ian's shaking his head yes.
I think what I told you guys last night is when I tell you that it's certified dry, I make no guarantees to my client that it's 100% dry. What I do keep is a log. I go to multiple points in that house. We go back twice a day. We check. If the water level came to 4 feet, we start at 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the plate. We check it in the morning and check it at night to check the drying, to see what percentage we're getting down. And when we finally get to where we want to be, that's where we are. I make no guarantees to my client other than the fact, here's my drying log. This is what we did. This is how we did it. And if they ask me, yeah, I'm comfortable at closing up your house. But I cannot guarantee that every little nook and cranny got 100% dry and that it's not going to grow some mold. Because one of the issues we had with one of the homes we did last year, this is the 3rd time I deflooded this man. Come to find out, there was a 4th time before he bought this home, which explained a lot of things that we found both times and again when it flooded this time.
Sorry, I can't help myself, but the short answer from my perspective is that, number one, if you're not in the business of doing mold remediation, then why are you trying to do it? Okay? You're not in the business of mold remediation. Who here is a mold remediator? Let me see a show of hands. Oh, none? Well, not you. Okay, none? Okay, who here is a remodeler or a builder? Okay, so why don't we stick to what we do? How about that? Because you don't want people like me showing up one day and going, oh, by the way, you showed up on this project and you said you could go do all of this, and you did it, but you didn't do it right, and now there's going to be a lawsuit or an arbitration against you based on the representations that you made. And when you get this type of case about homeowners in front of a jury or an arbitration panel because you didn't have the expertise or the training or the certification, you guys might as well just shut down your business and go find something else to do. Okay, that is not what you guys do. Now, I do want to emphasize one other thing that was commented on. Because you're not mold remediators, when you are working on these homes and you see something, it's the old TSA side. See something, say something. Okay, I would be, number one, with the advent of our cell phones, our laptops, our tablets and whatnot that all have an infinite amount of stuff. Like, my kids can't believe that you could only take 36 photos at one point. They just can't believe that was the only thing, because that's the biggest roll you could get. You've got thousands of photos you could take. Document your jobs. Document your jobs. Get an external hard drive, plug it into your laptop, take enough pictures to show this is how the home was before I started. And oh, by the way, if you do see something, I totally agree. Say something immediately and bring it to the homeowner's attention, because if it delays your project a week for you to get that mold remediation company back out so they can finish up or do something that they missed, so that you avoid having to come get me or someone like me to defend you, it was well worth waiting that week. So without a doubt, the answer is yes. If you want to step in there with your pinky toe, you might as well just jump in a cannonball, because you're in it all the way now. So don't do it. That's my advice. Don't do it.
I'm not advocating that you certify that you're mold-free. Nobody can do that. Not even a certified remote remediator, not a mold hygienist. Nobody can certify you mold-free. That is an impossibility. I'm just telling you that you're dealing with this. All of you that are doing demo work, you're doing mold remediation. And this is how this comes down. 2001, I came to Houston. I was in the first class that took certified mold remediator training. Got out the second day. This old boy came up to me and he's my God. He says, I didn't think I was a mold remediator, but I just found out I've been remediating mold for 40 years. And so we all do that. Make no guarantees, but I had a white paper I sent down here to the Houston Make sure you look at it, because one of the things I've said do is document this process. You document it when you walk in before you ever lift a finger. You document it when it's before you tear it out, while you're tearing it out, after it's torn out. And it's too easy to take pictures. It's too easy to keep this and put them in your file and leave them there for 7 years. As a remodeler, I have every contract I've ever written, every job I've ever done. It has saved me tons of problems through the years because we come in here and we find a problem 20 years later and they say, oh, you did that. No, we didn't work on this part of your house. We worked down here. That sort of thing.
Question.
Yes, I've had a lot, and I think that's setting people up for a problem.
Can you guys hear in the back?
If you put some kind of
Do you want us to repeat the question?
If you're,
The question is whether some clients want to put 2 feet of closed cell foam in the bottom. They want to install that in the bottom 2 feet up against the gyp board to restore the moisture barrier.
if you're
And is that a good idea in light of the fact that you may have wind-driven rain coming through brick or siding above that?
if you're talking about retrofitting with 2 feet of foam on the bottom, I would tell you don't do it. And I don't think any guy you talk to in the foam industry is going to tell you to do that, because you're not going to get this thing 100 absolutely dry. So if you leave any moisture in it at all and you foam it, now you've trapped it. Now you're going to get into it will rot and it's going to deteriorate. And so now you've got another whole set of circumstances. And when you back up and talk about this remodeling project, you had it ongoing. There's 3 issues you're going to run into out here. If you've got a remodeling project ongoing, you better have it documented where you are, where you were, what materials are on the job, because that's a whole separate issue, and you get paid for it separate. Now, if some of that got damaged, providing it's covered on your flood policy or some insurance policy, then it will be replaced. But then some of these homes also are going to fall under your homeowner's insurance. If they were wind damaged or falling water, rain, then that's on your homeowners. Rising flood insurance covers rising water.
Now remember, these contracts, one of the benefits of them is that you can get them in a Word format, so you can alter them. Now, if you're going to really alter them, please call somebody. But for that section, you're talking about paragraph 3, talking about the improvements and what they're going to be doing. You can cut and delete that because you're not going to have architect or engineering plans, or at least you probably won't. Unless there's a real structural issue, maybe there is. But other than that, no, you can delete that, and then you can say, because there is an addendum for your scope of work. Use that addendum and say, reference the, addendum A, whatever, and then that way you can list out exactly what's going to be done. That's exactly what you should be doing.
I got a question for Geep. Actually, before I ask that, Lisa, how much time do we have? I don't want to run over time. I know we have a good discussion.
You have approximately 25 minutes.
25 minutes more. All right, some of our homeowners who have flooded multiple times, like I have clients in Meyerland like this, they're going to dry out the house and sell it. And they're asking for a certification of some kind, or their realtor is telling them they need a certification that it was dried properly so that when the buyers come along, they know it was properly remediated. Who gives that certification? How do we get that for our clients?
That's a tough question.
You know the answer to that?
We'll get a mic. Yeah.
Toner Kirsting is one of our Remodelers Council members who's an environmental specialist, very, very knowledgeable guy.
Yeah, I called Toner to ask him about it, and he does have a service, and he will write a letter both for the homeowner to give to the insurance company, and then obviously if they're going to resell in a couple of years, a letter that he's come in, investigated the house, checked it all out, and that it's dry. I'm not sure he's doing the mold, but it is dry. And it's not cheap, and I'm looking for somebody a little cheaper, but
do you know how much it costs?
before you go back in and
Did
do
he give you like for a 2,000 square foot house, it's typically X?
no difference in the size of the house. $1,500.
There are people out here that are trained
But
to use
if
testing.
you're doing a $100,000 remodel on top of one of the $1,500 for the homeowner to cover themselves is not that outrageous.
That's what I was going to say. It's tough to certify one. I can take my my floor camera, I can go out to your project and I can look at it and it'll pretty much tell me whether I'm dry. But I can't get to every little nook and cranny to know that I was dried. Let's say a complicated corner or T system that's got multiple pieces that are, you know, how we build corners and T's. They're slapped up against each other. It's hard to get air between two pieces. They're not going to dry. It will go to dry. Eventually, everything does, but it may take a long time, and that creates other problems. That's what I told you a while ago. It's almost impossible to certify dry. I can take a testing unit and I can go in there. And there are guys that are out here in the environmental world that are certified in the testing procedure and in using that testing device. We've got that. But I don't think that there's not that many of them out there. There's quite a few, but I don't think there's anybody that's going to just tell you that, yep, you're 100% dry. That's a tough thing to do. I think what you can do is do what this gentleman said back here, if you want to provide a letter, but that's going to put you in a liability for almost for sure if you provide that letter. But you can provide and say, this is what was done. You don't guarantee that it's dry, but this is what was done. We put this much equipment in here. We put it in here for 7 days, and we monitored, and this was our monitoring results. That's all I give to the flood insurance guy when he sees it. I cannot 100% guarantee that it's going to be dry. It's a liability. I don't think you can, no, I don't think it's certifiable. But when I say, and I've mentioned to make sure you're certified dry, I'm talking about check all that can be checked. Somebody that knows how to read a moisture meter, have a drying log that would indicate that you did the best practice you could, that you did the best you could. I have some indemnification clauses in my contracts that I use. I use them a lot because part of what I've done in my life besides restoration, I always get these jobs nobody else wants, or they told them it couldn't be done. I'm an engineer, third generation in this. I can generally figure out how to make it work. But my indemnification clause says something like this. We're coming in to make the corrections in your home due to, and spell it out what it is. Our 100% best effort may not solve but 70% of your problem. But we'll do the best we can. We have a good track record, but we put that in there. And it's like every other clause you put in your contract. You put it in there as a CYA method. You know what CYA stands for, right? Everybody does? Cover your assets. So that's why we do it.
So I had one thing to build onto this. I talked to Toner about the whole topic yesterday and a couple of points to add. So there's two things, whether we're doing remediation work or not, if you're coming in as a remodeler after the fact, there's two things that you really have to worry about on these homes. One, is it dry, and two, is it mold free? I realize that a lot of people don't want to get into that, but you're going to have clients that are going to want to know before you put anything back together that that house is free and clear of stuff. So Toner is offering a service to where they'll come in and certify that it is dry. Toner is not certifying that they're mold free. That is a separate test that needs to be done by a mold hygienist. It's about $800 a house. They'll come in and take air quality samples, 1 per 1,000 square feet roughly, and then some swab tests as well. And a mold hygienist can fill out a document that's called a CMRD, CMDR, Certified Mold Remediation Document. Maybe I have the acronym backwards. Those are the correct letters. Y'all can look it up. It's a form from the TDI, Texas Department of Insurance, that will certify that that house has been tested for mold. It's a good CYA for a client for when they go sell the house. Let them handle that independently. You can give them a resource to a mold hygienist. But from what I'm finding, all my clients are going to want that safety blanket. They're going to want to know that. It's a good peace of mind. But they're two separate things, a dry home and a mold-free home. They're interconnected, but it's two separate people that are doing it. Toner does have like I said, a process for that, and I think he's assuming some liability associated with that. That's kind of why it's not the cheapest thing to do. But anyways, that's what I know about it.
Good question. Let's open it up after Jamila's comment to questions from the audience. I have more questions here, but I think there's some burning questions out there that people want to ask before we run out of time. Go ahead.
It was unrelated to Geep's really awesome summary on this remediation issue, but I heard in the question, I have clients who have flooded repeatedly and are now interested in selling. I just want everyone in the room to know that a substantial damage determination that has not been appealed follows that property forever until the house is either mitigated or until it's appealed. So if you or your clients are contemplating buying a house that was flood damaged, you should check with us to see if it was substantially damaged, because you could be buying a problem. And it doesn't mean it can't be fixed, but you should be aware of it, and it's not like it's going to be in deed records. You'd have to talk to the floodplain management office to know if there are outstanding hard holds on that property that will prevent any business from being done at the permit center until that's addressed. We'll help you and work with you to make sure that that is correct and there's no mistake, that it's in fact substantially damaged. But just be aware that it's out there, and it's still out there from 2015 maybe.
Adam?
One of our obligations, and sorry by the way for my voice because I've been exposed. I've seen so many houses here this last week. But I think one of our obligations is to protect the public, other than just making money, and do it all legally and safely. I'm thinking of our daughters and our sons as to how can we protect them. Should there be some kind of a registry of all the houses that got flooded? Is there such a thing? And what kind of a test can we do that is reasonably good and practical? Because many times, from what I've seen, homeowners and their neighbors have done the cleanup and everything's ready. Come and close it. This is where it's at right now.
Yes, it is. I was at a home yesterday. One of our clients were doing an outdoor project and they wanted me to come in and see the remediation that had been done by a couple of Hispanic guys that came by and gave them a good deal. They were going to do and they'd torn the house out to 2 feet. They had 3 or 4 box fans. This is a 3,500 square foot, 1-story home. And they wanted them to come back the next week and put the sheetrock and insulation back in. And not a dehumidifier in sight. But they got a really good deal. And I was just like, please don't do that. And they had no moisture meters. These guys had no equipment. So there's a lot of that going on out there. People who tear out their own homes, lots of people are doing that. They have no idea what the timing is or the requirements for putting sheetrock back on without creating a mold problem. It's going to be, I predict there's going to be a big mold issue from people that have prematurely covered up walls, and we're going to have to come in and deal with that as remodelers as well. So if you can counsel anybody not to close up early, please do so. Question?
I have tons of clients who do it themselves because it's very expensive. And so they're like, we're using bleach water. They think that's the be-all and end-all of the world, and I've just heard that is not the thing to do. That's not what you should be using in order to get your house mold or mildew free or whatever. But, you know, I've got a client that's got a $2 million house, and he had a bunch of people in there, and he said, well, we just treated everything with bleach water, and we're ready to go. And I'm like, I don't think so, which is why I came today, because that's always what I've been told.
I'm not sure I heard all your question, but we keep hearing somebody say mold-free. That's an impossibility, guys. You live in Houston.
Right,
okay?
but
you live in the
also
deep south with the high humidities we have. There's no way to be mold-free. I can reduce the mold count. I can reduce maybe the types of molds and the size of what you have compared to outside. But I can't 100%, and I don't know if anybody would certify you to be mold-free.
I think we've covered that. I think what she's asking
but
is,
somebody
told me on the FEMA FAQs or whatever,
yes,
it says to use bleach.
Exactly.
But the conventional wisdom out there is not to use bleach. A lot of people are using it unthinned. They're not doing the proper ratio. You have vapor issues that can be damaging to your respiratory system, to your skin. It corrodes certain construction materials like nails and fasteners in the walls and junction boxes and so on. So I've heard to dissuade people from using bleach and use one of the proper mildewcides.
Yep. Bleach is a bad material to use because of the one thing, it degrades fasteners and it's corrosive. We had an issue come up yesterday on one of Dan's jobs. Somebody was smelling something burning on the job. And he asked me, I said, well, I turned the power off right now. And I said, my guess is, and we've just been talking about this, if any of your devices that go into water, receptacles, switches, all that, chunk them. If the wire went under the water, you got to get the wire cut back to where it's not wet. And you can tie on to it. They have a certified splice kit. I don't know if it's acceptable in your area, but they sell them at Home Depot and Lowe's, or you can put them in a box wherever it can be, accessible. But this device had already shorted out. There was something pulling amperage through that device because we connect wires at every at every plug. You know that, and every switch. We're connecting this wire to the other one through the device, and the device got hot, and it caught on fire, and it melted it. Dan's got a picture on his phone
Scary
of where it
picture.
happened. So those are real issues. The other issue we're talking about, for the most part, none of the homes that are flooded have structural issues unless there was flowing water. But Dan took me by a home yesterday that the flooring swelled up so bad inside, it pushed the outside plate and the wall, the brick wall, fell off. I've never seen the equal of what took place here. So now the entire brick wall system will come down. That material, which I think was a gypsum on the outside, it will get replaced. But bleach is not a good material to use. The materials that I talked about, Benefact, Microban, those are all safe to use around electrical devices and that sort of thing. They don't cause any corrosion I'm aware of.
Kevin?
So how do you feel about borax? I mean, borax, I guess, is something that keeps the mold from growing back. Is that something that's good for all the germs you'll find in the wall?
Borax is an acceptable product. It's been used, but there's also some issues with borax in terms of galvanization, like the bleach causing deterioration and that sort of thing. Just depends on, and borax has been used for a lot of things through the years. Borax is a fire deterrent, that sort of thing. And it can be used, but you need to know the product. I wouldn't willy-nilly put a product out there. Go to someone that knows this product and will say that this product works and has enough information to say the product works. But everything you're doing here is going to come back to what Ian said a while ago. You create a liability. Now, we all want to help these people, but you can't go help these people to the detriment of your business or your family. And you've got to be much, much more on your toes with your contractual issues with this flood work than you do with general remodeling.
I have a question for either Jamila or our FEMA guest. How many weeks or months do you think it'll be before FEMA starts sending homeowners checks? Because they're pressuring us to get started when the houses are dried out, and there may be a lag time. We don't want to finance the job for a month or 2 months out ahead. Any idea on when checks will begin to flow?
I don't know.
Man, I knew I shouldn't have wore this FEMA shirt. I'm not coming in here. Before I handle that question, there was a question earlier with regard to backer board and on brick veneer. By the way, I'm a floodplain manager. I'm not a flood insurance claims expert, but we do have people back at the JFO that are experts. So the answer I got, and I will actually read it to you, if I can do it without my glasses. When flooding of buildings consisting of wood frame construction and brick veneer occurs, complete demolition is not always required. There are alternative methods or repair or replacement of fiberboard sheathing. In other words, it's up to the adjuster whether an engineer is needed to come in to determine whether to remove that backer board, you have to remove the brick veneer. So they may come in and just adjust the claim to replace the backer board and the brick veneer, or they may not, or they may ask an engineer to come in to make the call as to whether that can be accomplished. With regard to claims, FEMA is already sending out checks to folks with, and I'm talking just the folks with NFIP flood insurance. We have pushed out $136 million in advance payments at this time. We expect that number is going to continue to increase. Typically, folks are going to get their claims payments. It's going to take a few weeks for them to start getting checks, but we did push out those advance payments for folks that could demonstrate that that the house was flood damaged. They were immediately pushed out checks. I believe it was $10,000 as an advance payment for them to start to get their lives in order. But as far as actually getting the claims check for the entire amount, that can take some weeks.
Good, thank you.
To round that out, David, is there any way that homeowners who didn't get advance payments can request them if they feel that they should have them?
Yes. One of the things we run into is some of the insurance agents are not aware that this advance payment is. We've really done, I think, a pretty good job of advertising that these advance payments are available, and a lot of insurance agents and companies have offered these. If you know somebody with an NFIP policy that has not been offered an advance payment, what they can do is they can call the FEMA disaster assistance number and push 2, and that'll put them into the flood insurance call center, and they can offer them advice on how to contact the company to get them to turn on the advance payment. So if somebody hasn't been offered the advance payment, they should try to get that done.
Thank you. David and I have to leave right now to get to our next exciting event. But before we go, I just wanted to thank you guys for having us in. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I know based on the fact that you come to this type of meeting that you want to do the best job that you can for your customers, and that means a lot to us at the Houston Permitting Center because we know that you're the ones who are going to do a great job and do everything right. To help you do that, I'm going to drop off some of these flyers at the tables when I leave. And this tells you a little bit more about permit requirements in the floodplain in case you want to see that in writing. And also, circled in the corner, it has the general email address and the main phone number for the Floodplain Management Office if you have some specific questions. And then in addition, in terms of all this new stuff I'm talking about, as well as the opening of satellite permit locations, et cetera, you'll want to be monitoring HoustonPermittingCenter.org, our main webpage, to hear the latest on what's going on in terms of additional options that may help you, extended hour satellite locations that you might want to avail yourselves of.
We'll put that document on the flood information part of the website. GHBA.org already has a great collection of information, how-to stuff, what to tell homeowners, and so on. So be sure you look at that collection of documents, and we'll add that one. I'd like to ask the group a question, if I may.
I was going to get
How are we doing on time?
Do a group photo before she left.
Okay. Oh,
go ahead.
So, what are you guys telling your the leads that are calling your business that you know you can't get to? They're either outside of your territory geographically, or they're not a good fit. They want 5 bids, whatever it is that in your pre-qualification process, you know you're not going to go out and respond to that client. But you don't want to. Yeah, send them to me. Thanks a lot. How do you empathize with these poor homeowners without burning a bridge, but still being honest with them and say, I just can't get to you? Has anybody got any magic bullets for that? What are you guys doing? Does anybody have something on their website that just says right away? Yes, ma'am. Can we get you a mic, please?
I am not a remodeler. I'm a cabinet and window distribution company. But because we serve Houston builders, they are referring us to replace bottom cabinets. On my website and on our triage that we're doing, we recommend you have a contractor and you go to GHBA.org and look at the list of remodelers that are members and can trust that they know what they're doing.
That's a good idea. We're doing the same thing, but then the people call me back and say, yeah, I went to GHBA and you were on the list, so how many times do I have to go in this circle? So, what else are you guys doing? Kevin, Vic, you had something, and then Jeff, you just have something on your website, don't you?
I guess some of you know who Websites by Ideal is. They do my website. So Art and Lorraine were kind enough to put an emergency tab on my homepage, and we set up an auto response. So they go in, they fill out the contact form, how much water did you have in your house, all the basic information, contact information, then how much water, do you have insurance, and from that I can look at HCAT, I can see the value of their home, I can look at Google Maps, see what area of town they're in, and I've pretty much been hiding, to tell you the truth. I've got existing clients that we were trying to start before the flood. I've got to take care of them. I have to take care of my repeat clients. We're in the process of cataloging everybody that has filled out the contact form. What that does is it timestamps it, so the people who are an appropriate fit for us, we could go back through and start contacting them. They will get an auto response when they fill out the contact form, and what that auto response says is, we're sorry this has happened. We're trying to get to you as quickly as we can. We are servicing our existing clients, and then we'll call you shortly. So it's just kind of a generic way to say, hold on, we're going to get to you, but we can't get to you right now. So that's been very helpful. We're in the process now of going back through that list and trying to get help to some of those folks.
That's super important that they do hear back from you. You need to have a standard email you send out or something, but these people are reaching out, and I know it's burdensome, but you have to drop them a quick email or something and just not respond. I don't think that's an appropriate thing to do, and it's overwhelming. Jeff, go ahead.
I reminded a reporter that I spoke to last week that they need to kind of consider laying off the comments about, beware of the out-of-town contractor scam. I'm telling homeowners, look, there's not enough, we didn't have enough labor before Harvey. We dang sure don't have it now. So with the numbers I'm hearing, 175,000 homes, something like that, this is 5 or 6 years worth of work. We can't do it all.
True.
So the homeowners, I'm telling, you're going to have to be patient. We'll get to you in the order that we get to, but when you hear someone's from out of town, I'm talking to guys in Maine that are wanting to move their company down here, and they're legitimate companies, and we need that help. And I talked to Casey about reaching out to NAHB and other HBAs, and I don't know if it's going to work, but just an avenue of trying to find trades people that can get down here to help us. So I think the key thing is empathy. Someone said it earlier, and overemphasizing patience to the customer, because it will take. Look, Geep, would it take Katrina 6 years, 5 years to rebuild all that, or they're still doing it?
5 years to do the initial knockdown. There's people down there still on rebuild.
Yeah. So we've got a little bit more densely populated area here, and I think maybe even more homes ultimately were affected. So I think it's going to take just telling people that what their expectations are. That we know you want to get back in your house, but for those that without flood insurance, what I'm suggesting that we do is go in and do. I use the analogy. In remodeling, we're sort of like plastic surgeons. It's elective surgery. We're now ER doctors. Stop the bleeding. So we got to get them stable and get them in a stable condition, and that may just mean sheetrock and doors and insulation and getting the house secure and worrying about floors and paint later. If someone's only got $10,000 to spend, they don't have 60 grand laying around, and no insurance. The only option, I think, is to go in and just, Band-Aid, get as much done as we can, and then worry about phase 2 later next year.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We are discussing at NAHB and TAB, the Texas Association of Builders, a program for, I don't know if the word recruiting is right, but inviting good contractors from other states where work is slow to move here permanently or temporarily, and have a way of screening them through our associations so that we qualify them as being good guys and not the fly-by-nighters, because we're going to need extra labor and extra talent in here, no question. And even then, it's still going to take years. So we are working on a way to get the good people to come here and giving them good reason, financial impetus more than anything else, to come here and help us out. I think we're all going to be busy for a really long time. Yes, sir.
I have a client who has asked, can you at least get me my master bath, my master bed, and maybe a sink or something? I'll wait for you.
A toilet would be good too.
Yeah. Yeah, and they agree that they'll wait for us. So maybe that's another option for everybody. You can offer something like that to your clients.
It's a good point. Some people who can't afford to put the whole thing back together have a package that you can offer them that just has the bare minimum. A little bit of bare minimum kitchen, the functional bathroom, and a place to sleep, and leave all the cosmetics and the other stuff till later. That would be helpful.
There is a program through FINA for people that are not insured, and it will get you enough money to do a Band-Aid approach, what he said. It'll put sheetrock up, give you division in your bedrooms. It'll get one bath back functional, but functional means a bathtub, a commode, and a sink. It'll get a kitchen back functional. Here again, it's enough countertop to prepare stuff. But a sink, a stove, a refrigerator doesn't get you a dishwasher, no baseboards. It'll get you enough doors to get privacy in a bedroom, but that's all. It won't put doors and everything. A couple of things that I'll add. How many of you know that there's a cap to the flood insurance? Not very many. It's $250,000, guys. That's it. There is a way to get another $30,000 if it's somewhat of a code upgrade type situation or that sort of thing. Contents has a $100,000 cap on it. You need to know that. If you're doing demo, anything that you can salvage to reuse, you need to be doing that. Commodes are salvageable. They're cleanable. They're not going to pay on them. They may, but most likely they're not. If you got countertops, marble, granite, such as that, and they can be salvaged, you got to make the attempt, or you need to talk to that adjuster and have a clear understanding of whether it's going to be covered. But once you hit that $250K, it doesn't matter. You're dead.
Well, the owners have to come up with the balance. Repeat the
Flood
question.
insurance, there are items that are going to be depreciated, and there will not be any recoverable depreciation. However, there are recoverable depreciation items. Just like any other policy, that forces you to do the work, get to completion, to get the remainder of your money. But that is always there. It's always a possibility. The other thing with flood insurance, all companies don't write their policies the same. They have guidelines from NFIP. But for instance, they'll pay no O&P on demolition, appliances, floor coverings. You need to know that.
When you buy your flood insurance, you pick the risk. The max you can buy is $250. My policy is $200 because of the price of my home. You can buy a policy with only $150,000. It's not automatic $250 for everything.
No, what I'm telling you is the maximum payout. Let's say you got a $500,000 home that's damaged. All you're going to get out of your policy is $250. That's correct.
Yeah, the point is
You're correct, but I'm talking about
Yeah.
maximum payout on a damage. Even if you have premiums to exceed the $250, obviously you're not going to get more than the premiums you paid for. That's in any insurance, but there is a cap.
So people need to look at their coverage and see what they purchased. If it's
Absolutely.
less than $250, it's whatever they contracted for. We're running out of time. There's a couple of comments. We have one from Ian and one from you.
We're going to end, I guess, appropriately with the attorney. So.
Okay.
Is that your wife telling you you're late?
No. Okay, real quick. We enjoy listening to all of y'all, but there's some stuff that we need, as far as the city of Houston, we need to let y'all know. The code change after Allison is when we changed the requirement for residential where you can replace the sheetrock 2 feet up. If you're not touching electrical, where you don't require the permit for that. The reason I'm saying that is because we've been getting a lot of questions of that, and we do know this, but that was one of the changes we did to help the homeowner and also the contractors go in and do the work, get the sheetrock out, get it to the point where they can move back in. With this particular flood, we started working the day after, really, to get to where we're at now and what we're going to do as far as how we're going to help you out. One of the things we are doing that we made the decision, it just hasn't been announced yet, or it will be. Well, first of all, hours of HPC is going to be from 7:30 to 6:30. And that is to give you more time to where you can come in earlier before you get to the job site, or if you finish up at the end of the day and you need to come in and get something done. Yeah, Harvey repairs only, okay? So we do have staff there that is waiting. I think yesterday, yesterday, maybe 1 or 2 customers at best. But we are there and waiting if you want to come in and do that for the. Now, for the flood repairs that do require a permit, I think it's a couple of questions on there. If you put Harvey flood anywhere on top of there, it is a priority for the Harvey flood victims if you need a permit for that. And all the staff knows that if you come in, put that on there, we'll get it going. Another question I believe that was on the list is as far as the inspections. For the inspections, believe it or not, with the code change that we did after Allison, the inspection count really has not gone up. Structural inspections, we are averaging 600 and something inspections a day now. Now, a year ago, we was averaging 1,000 a day. Okay, well, we increased the staff for that to cover the 1,000, and right now our numbers are to the point where yes, if you call today, you will get an inspection tomorrow. Now, if it is something that we missed anything, just call the office and let us know, and we will work with you. Okay, so inspection-wise, if you do call in, yes, you will get inspection. Not just structural, but the MEPs also. Any questions on that? Yeah, we're still working on it, though. I mean, there are still changes that we need to do, and we are meeting every day until necessary if there's any problems that come up with any part of it. Oh, the other thing is it 6400 High Star? The Southwest Multi-Service Center. I believe it's 6400 High Star. It's the Southwest Multicultural Center. And what it is, we open up a satellite office on the southwest side. And it is open 7:30 to 6:30 also. 6400 High Star. And it's a soft opening day, but it will officially open tomorrow morning. And we are also looking at other areas. We have our satellite offices, the Clear Lake, Kingwood, I believe it's Tacoma, I forgot the ad, but those are open also. Now the Kingwood, because it is an area that was hit hard, it's a small office out there, but we will be expanding it so that we're able to handle the capacity of more people out there.
It's good to see the city's trying hard to be as reachable and accessible for all the folks that need it. It's good.
With the mayor saying all managers putting in 10, 12-hour days, yes, you do.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
we
The
do.
question to your left?
Yes. Not right now. You still need to come into the main office, but we do have staff early. But we are looking into that also to see how we can staff it.
All right, thank you. Let's do a second to final comment from Ian Faria.
Appreciate it. Actually three quick things. Number one, there's been a discussion about out-of-town, out-of-county contractors and subcontractors coming down. A couple things. Number one, if you have friends that are out of Austin, Dallas, wherever, and they're remodelers and builders, and they say, you know what, I really want to come to Houston and help out, and they don't have an office, and they have not maintained an office for at least a year in the county in which they're going to work, you may want to let them know that they cannot require the homeowner give them a down payment. They can't collect any money up front. You can. They cannot. They have to have special contract provisions in their contract, which is in 5B of the remodeler's contract. And for those of you that are in Harris County, Montgomery County, anything that was declared a disaster and you have an office there, if you want to take that out of your contract, you can. I don't recommend it. I just leave it there. Shows the homeowners that you're being above board and showing them exactly what their rights and obligations are. But if you are going to have people that are going to come in, let them know this, because if they violate it, it's a Deceptive Trade Practices Act violation automatically. Okay? So this is something that the legislature did back in 2011 in response to all the fires that we had in Grimes County and other counties that were complete disasters, as mandated by Governor Perry at the time, and as a result, this law was passed. Okay, so that's kind of number one. Number two, I can imagine that subcontractors and trades are going to be very difficult to come by in many respects, and they're going to have a lot of work. Okay, and I get that, and that's wonderful and great for them. But number one, for my builders and remodelers, I know you already have an independent contract agreement, and if you don't, you need to get one. But if we have anyone else coming in that you don't have a current relationship with, and even if you do have a relationship, I still think you should get it. But if you are going to go out and hire someone out of Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Waco, I don't care where they're from, make sure you have an independent contractor agreement and that you verify their insurance ahead of time and have yourself designated as an additional insured, named insured. Okay? That's going to be very important for you. Finally, one last thing, because Donna reminded me, with respect to the mold waiver disclaimer that I've put together, I'm going to email, you still feel free to contact me, but I'm going to also, sorry Donna, email it to Donna so she has it, just in case. So if you can't get a hold of me for some reason, she'll have it later today when I get back to the office. And that's where I wanted to end, but thank you all very much.
Great. So how many of you learned some important information for your businesses today? I sure did. So thank you for staying an extra long time today for this meeting. I want to be sure that we give a hearty round of applause to our panelists. All of you guys, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. I have more questions. Gilbert has more questions. Lots of you have more questions, I know. So we'll be continuing to bring information to you in the coming weeks, and maybe even doing updates at the next Remodelers Council meeting. So do come to the next few meetings. There'll be more good information for you. And thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate it.
So we still got some announcements. If y'all want to stick around for just a minute in the panel, we're going to get a picture of y'all.